And welcome to Opinion Court. Thank you for staying with us, of course, and waiting for this discussion. 22422 is our SMS line if you want to get in touch with us. Tonight we're taking a break from the politics to discuss some troubling statistics that came out of the National AIDS Control Council. I'll be telling you about that shortly, but first let me introduce my guests to you. To my left is the Director of the National AIDS Control Council, Dr. Nduku Kilonzo. To my right is Catherine Mutundu, a sociologist, and next to her is Edward Kisiangani, our resident analyst. Ladies, gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. So this is what the facts and figures look like, and we're just going to show it to you. At least 100 teenagers aged between 15 until the bracket of youth of 24 years old constitute the largest population of people living with HIV and AIDS in the country. In 2015, the total number of new infections among adults was recorded at slightly less than 78,000. 51% of them were teenagers and young adults, and that is a troubling trend to notice, given the fact that we've been seeing declining rates of infections. Let me start with you, Doctor. What has informed this startling rise?
I think there is several factors, and one, if you think historically, a lot of young people, I don't think necessarily saw the beginnings of HIV when there was no treatment. And as they have become young adults, I am not sure that they have the same appreciation of HIV. I think secondly, there are also systemic challenges where perhaps young people have not been disclosed to the issues around peer pressure, mean that young people are not taking up medication. But a significant community and social issue is the question of stigma and discrimination. For many young people, I would rather not get tested, I would rather not know my HIV status, I would rather not disclose, and if all of those things somehow happen, I would rather not take medication unless there is very, very good support systems. And I think the last and the third is the fact that when you look at some basic indicators like information and knowledge, our young people are getting their knowledge and information from the internet, and so rather than from communities and parents and our social systems and schools, rather than getting information from there that is factual. So it's a host of factors, in my opinion, that has led us to the place where we have new infections among adults dropping and new infections among young people rising.
Are you concerned about it to the extent that that's the future of the country that we're talking about? And 100 new infections is a far cry from talking about 100 a month. It's on a daily basis. How worried as a council are you?
Part of the reason why we have put this out here for the Kenyan public and for all of us is to start to say, look, if we are going to achieve our dream of shared prosperity and our dream of a community with well-being and all these things we have in our constitution around the highest standards of health and so on and so forth, we will not be able to do that if we are not arresting new infections among young people. And as a council, we can put in as many strategies, but we cannot do it on our own. We need Kenyans in different sectors, in different walks of life, parents, teachers, the faith communities. And we've had a lot of, I think, engagement and support from the communities of people living with HIV who've really come out at the forefront and have started to engage on the question of young people living with HIV. So the answer to your question, it is a big deal. It is something that if we do not address now, the gains we have made in prevention of mother-to-child transmission, for instance, are going to be lost because the next few upcoming mothers are going to be infected with HIV, and so we'll have to keep investing. It is a big deal because it has socioeconomic implications. If we continue to get more new infections every year, currently we do not have a cure, we do not have a vaccine, which simply means that we have to think about lifelong ART. And when you look at the costs of ART as we have them, and here I'm making the economic sort of pitch, is our treatment costs about $200 per person per year. We are looking at 1.5 million people living with HIV, and if we add 100,000 or 70,000 every year, into that, into more people.
Yeah,
really,
and specifically young people who do not have the same economic well-being to even be able perhaps to sustain the treatment that they require. Catherine, is this the next big social crisis that this country is going to face? We've been talking about drugs and alcoholism. Is HIV and AIDS the next one?
It is the next one. Actually, it's a national disaster, because we are saying in this forum that we are losing youth to drugs. We are losing youth to violence. We are losing youth to name it. They are just going and going and going. And it means that we are not going to have another generation if we keep on losing youth at that level. Now the question is why? What has happened? Where have we lost it? And I keep on saying many reasons, like Madam has said. It could be the reason. But I still feel there's a place the family is letting go. Our youth are too free. We are releasing them too much.
What do you mean too free?
Too free in the sense that we have given them freedom to do what they want. We have been given them freedom to go for evening bash. We have given them freedom to go for parties without necessarily following out, without necessarily finding out what did they go to do, without necessarily finding out, can I be interested in what you are doing, without necessarily telling them, do you know there is a danger out there? It's like we are saying, let them go so that we can be left to do our own thing. And I usually, and I've been saying this for so many times, I think the parents
are to blame.
Not to blame, the parents have the biggest role to play in this. She said lightly, they are doing their best, but they can't do everything. Let the parent take care of this, try to tame this youth in whichever way, advising.
In 2016, where society is that much more liberal, a parent is probably asking, how plausible is it for me to stop my child from going out to have a good time? I mean,
you don't have to. You don't have to stop them. Get interested in what they are doing. Get interested in where they are going. And then if they tell you where they are going, you can put a word of advice. You can tell them the dangers of this and that and the other. You can tell them about HIV/AIDS. You can tell them about the dangers when they go out there and the chances of getting HIV/AIDS. But if they say, Mom, I want to go with my friend Jane, and they say, it's okay, here's the money, just go. Just make sure you are not late. No, you are releasing them, but you could still release them because and you can't stop the youth from being youth. But can we put some controls and some measures and some degree of interest? What is it you are going to do? Do you know there's this danger?
Who are you going to do it with?
And do you know there's this danger in it? And once in a while, can I also accompany you? Once in a while.
Right.
That way, they feel whatever they do, you have an interest. So they might not go to the extreme. And this way, we shall not be helping organizations like National Risk Control Council in what they are doing. We shall be playing our part, and they are playing their part, and then you are playing your part, and then the schools are playing their part. And if we are all playing our part, then we shall be able to get hold of this youth and put them on the right track.
Prof, this hits home for you especially because you're a lecturer at a local university. This is precisely the age group that would possibly sit in your class. I mean, how concerned are you about this? 100 new infections a day. We've had 100 today, at least by your statistics, Dr. Ndoku.
Yeah, this is a matter of great concern, not just by me, but many people who are interested in the continuation of humanity. I think it is a crisis, but there are simple solutions that have been given, and suggestions like what she's saying and what Dr. Ray has said about, many factors, and we talk about this, and then we say that these factors, if they are addressed, the problem will go away. I think that is not the point. The point is that we have a situation where most of the people live in self-denial, especially the parents, the adults. We live in self-denial. We think the problem will just walk away, and we are unable to cope with the challenges of modern life. Most of it is so important, and with the explosion of the information age, virtual communities have been created, and these virtual communities can be as new citizens have come on earth. your children could be here as Kenyans, but they belong to a community you don't know.
The global community.
The global community, but that global community could be virtual. Let me give you an example. Our children would be talking about themselves, about being Kenyan, but they are also members, supporters of Manchester United. And they are discussing the same things with the supporters of Manchester United in Ghana. So they have created a virtual community with our president. They are likely even to pay allegiance and even loyalty to the coach of Chelsea than even their own president. So in this case, therefore, they are also not likely to obey the parents. So we must also try to look at the virtual communities which they belong to and see how we can extract some values with that local community without them, hiding that from us. Then when we get those local communities, virtual communities, we can now say, we recognize your beat. We know we don't understand even what you talk about in these communities, but we want to inject some value. We must penetrate their local communities as a society, their virtual communities, so that we accept parts of the value system of that virtual community so that they feel accepted. But what we do is that when we are dealing with this HIV problem, we are always looking at generally the old-fashioned way of sorting out problems. Control children, look after them, and let them get permission. This does not even work. They have new codes which they could be speaking against Anne Giguta in her own house, but she doesn't understand.
Please don't. Especially if you're in my house.
Yes, but they can do that. So in that case, therefore, you see, we keep on. Some people have even suggested we must condomize the nation. How
should we? We had this conversation with you about a year ago, and I remember we had Senator Sijeni, I believe, who was putting forward the reproductive health bill, and one of its provisions was that, well, perhaps not to condomize society, but go ahead and provide condoms in primary schools and in secondary schools. Do you think with 100 new infections daily, 15 years of age, that this is where we'll have to go inevitably?
Do you know some of the communities, the virtual communities that the children belong to, might have raised some theories about infections, and they are accessing literature which is probably telling them that using condoms will not even prevent you from infection. There are all sorts of stereotypes that have come up, and some of them choose by choice, peer pressure, like you put it, by choice they choose not to use condoms. So you can still supply condoms, but
they
won't use them. They must see some value that they are threatening their own life. You must tell them you are threatening your own life. But to do that, we must meet the kids halfway. We must accept certain bits of their life which we don't like because we grew up differently.
Like what? What did you have as
like what I said at the beginning, and I want to support you, the condomize issue. We can give them condoms, but do they even believe in them?
Yes.
Will they even take them? You can give them and they throw them away.
Yes.
So the first thing is there somebody telling them what is a condom? Why are we using it? And even the language. And we have to destigmatize, that condoms are there to prevent, that kind of language. But if you give them in a language, soft language, that they understand what is a condom, what is it for, why do we need it? It's not that you are bad and you are going to do bad things, but it's that the world outside there is so dangerous, so that's why you wanted to use this. And I feel, and I could be wrong, I feel the first place to do that is the home. Because the voice of appellant has a meaning. And if the voice of appellant was heard, then his voice was heard, then her voice was heard, then the media was heard, then we would be able to bring this youth into some sanity. We are not controlling.
Let me bring in Dr. Kilonzo. What do you think?
Yes.
Is it sex education that's missing, basic sex education?
It's a whole world of many things. But let me just make reference to one of the things that Prof has said and about young people. So over the last about 2 months, we have been engaging with young people whose following in that virtual world is in the hundreds of thousands. And, they're accountable. They're about, 40 young people who have following of hundreds of thousands. And so we've been asking them, How do you talk to each other? Who says what? How can you get young people to listen to you? Because obviously, if you have a following of 100,000, we should be talking to you, and there's a way you are engaging that we are talking to you. And over the last 1 month, what has happened is that we have started to see a whole shift in the social media campaign. And if there's what is called, and noting that I am beyond this, but hashtag Generation Next. It's really they've been yes, they've started to push the dialogue in a different way, because even all the things that Madam Catherine is saying around parents, the language that we speak and the language that those young people speak are worlds apart. And so I think
we don't connect.
We do not connect at all.
So we can't influence them.
We asked them. Who do you watch? Who do you engage with? What programs do you watch on TV? And they said, TV.
We don't watch TV.
We don't do TV. There's YouTube. So as we are sitting here, we are not talking to that crowd. We are talking to us.
But you're watching on YouTube.
So, but you get the point. And I asked, what about radio? And they said, we don't do radio. So in fact, where we are locating our information and communication has not been the most effective.
Should we take it right to the classroom?
Changing it. Yes, definitely. And I want to say that we have the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education have come together and agreed on very clear action points. And the 3 key areas that were agreed on were, 1, obviously treatment, because the highest number of deaths, the leading cause of deaths among adolescents and young people is AIDS-related deaths. And so the first...
It's the leading cause of death among
adolescents and young people.
HIV and AIDS.
AIDS-related deaths.
AIDS-related deaths.
Yes. And so, because we do, a lot of young people either are not tested, those that are on treatment have challenges with taking treatment because they say, the education system doesn't support them. And that was really the basis upon saying we have to come together. How does the health sector that provides the medication and the education system that hosts the young children come together? So currently there's an exercise on geo-mapping, looking at facilities that host young people and schools, and looking at should we be opening facilities on Saturdays. The second one is support groups. So the network of people living with HIV, NEFAC, has then established a, I'm not sure to call it a subsidiary, but a network of and supporting young people living with HIV, and they're called Sauti Skika. And the whole idea is to be able to talk on behalf and with older people around HIV and strengthen support groups. So they've started working around all the 47 counties to get other young people. And I think you've all seen Elijah, who is part of that network, and that's the kind of voice and champions that the young people are bringing up from themselves. And then the third part of it with the education sector is the curriculum and teacher training. And there are very specific targets that have been identified, and already there has been progress that next year, that's where it will, as part of the curriculum reform, but also next year teacher training, particularly in service, will be starting. So the answer to your question is yes, the education is a must. We do recognize that that gap has not always been there, but there's already been, over the last better part of this year, a lot of sort of not just process work, but very clear actions that are leading towards reducing the numbers of deaths, and particularly because of increased ART and increased retention for young people.
Catherine, what happened to the ABC? We used to preach in my heyday. Abstain.
A, abstain.
Be faithful.
Be faithful.
C, use a condom.
And let's see
this is now XYZ. What has happened?
No, they're overtaken. They're overtaken. Maybe you should correct that. They're overtaken because abstain is very difficult. We are in an African context. It's not very easy for men to abstain, and we have one here and many around. But of course, let me finish. It's very difficult, and that's why we talk of prevention. Prevention. If you feel you are pushed to the corner, then you use prevention measures. Being faithful to one partner, and being honest. If we can be very, very honest with ourselves.
How many people
don't, the majority of people don't have one partner. Majority. A good number have. like you and
not to cast aspersions on the characters of anybody on the panel, but
that's true. No, but so I'm trying to say, can we be a bit honest with the situation? Not many people are able to be faithful to one partner.
Our values have changed, is what you're saying.
They have changed. They have changed. Situations have changed. Our behavior has also changed. So
ABC works, but we've rejected it.
It has been overtaken. At that time, it was okay, but so many things are happening, and you are here, and you are going for training somewhere in Mombasa, and you are there for a week, and one thing leads to another, and you find even if you wanted to be faithful, something has happened. The use of condoms. We want to use condoms. We have preached about it. We have given all the information. But at times, there's so much excitement that you even forget about it. So, and then the deal was death. And now you say, we are not dying of HIV/AIDS. Let's discuss about the status. And then we can prevent it, we can control it, and we can manage it. So it is like the A, B, C, D, they are still relevant, but things have changed. Things are changing a bit.
There are two more things that I would add to this.
Yes.
The first one is about the same virtual communities we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The chances are that the parents who are watching this show are not the heroes or heroines of their own children.
I agree with that.
So,
Prof.
one of the things that we should be asking as parents is the change you are talking about is to ask our children, who are your heroes? If among the heroes and heroines we get certain people who are straightforward, we can use them to influence the change in our children. If they say their hero is Anne Giguta, you should call Anne to come and talk to the children. They are likely to understand you and even go by your way because they don't want to disappoint you. But we force these children and tell them, you know, we are you must listen to us, and they don't essentially listen to us. The second thing is, when you see kids doing what they are doing, they are suicidal. So from a medical point of view, you can look at that. For how mentally prepared are they to become the next generation? We must fix a number of things in our society. The news.
Sorry, Prof. Let me take you back. Qualify that. When you're saying when they engage in illicit sex, that equals being suicidal?
Yes, they are suicidal.
How so?
How it is this. You can tell them, look, you must use condoms and protect yourself from HIV/AIDS because you will die. Then they will tell you, I have nothing to live for. Wow. I'll have job. I'm not likely to get a job. I'm not likely to get good food. So probably before AIDS kills me, corruption will have killed me. Before AIDS kills me, somebody will have denied me a job and I will have died of hunger. So our children also need.
There's a hopelessness.
There's a situation of hopelessness, and they get cheap pleasure from sex, and because it gives them, you know, what you call transient, short-term but transient satisfaction, but which doesn't go anywhere. So this society also needs to reform. The things we cry about, they watch very bad news.
Yeah.
You are saying they are not television people, but what do they watch? They watch, we are paying MCS in Nairobi to fight with chairs, and we pay them 300,000 shillings per month. But we cannot even raise a job for a young kid who has left university.
True.
So what messages are we giving? Adults fighting. The stories you get in the newspapers about sex and other things, and then you go and tell your children, don't do this. Theft, stealing public funds. These things come together to tell you that, you know, our kids have nothing to live for. They will tell you, I'll never get it. Let me give you one last example, Anne. So I have met my own students, now that you referred to this. My own students I taught 10 years ago in the university. And then I tell them, I'm sure you have now got a family. They say, Marim, I have nothing to live for. I cannot pay I cannot look after a family. I earn very little money. I can't even pay rent. And so looking after a family is a problem. So I will never probably get married. Now what they're telling you, they have nothing to live for. So probably that sex is the only pleasure they'll get in their lives. And they will tell you, I will not die of AIDS. I'm going to die of something else. So that is one of the things that we must, this is systemic situation within the country, the political situation within the country. We must do something to make sure that our kids have something to live for. And if we do that, they will not do things that will endanger their lives. When you look at suicide bombers in Pakistan and other places, or Palestine, right now children in Palestine look more hopeful than they were probably 30 years ago during the time of Arafat. And the reason is that now they think there is the Palestinian state and they have something to live for. But immediately they lose interest in life because they have nothing to live for. You have this kind of suicidal tendency where they say, after all, I'm not going to die of AIDS.
Wow. And they do justification. They say, well, even if I don't die of AIDS, people are dying of cancer, people are dying of this, that thing. So to them, it's not a very big issue.
Deal.
And that's why I said, Anne, can we be honest with ourselves? We have to start somewhere, at least at a place where these children can listen to you first, so that when they go to the world, he's talking about that very cruel world, too complicated for them, too exciting, big things, a lot of love affairs. You know, that's what they are seeing every day, raw sex on the TV, so that by the time they get there, you have already cushioned them a bit, so that even if they see that, they are still a bit cushioned not to go to that. But they are exposed to such wild world that they get to where he is.
He's talking about. Dr. If you would end with your final comments.
I think my final comments are twofold, and the first is just to react to the concept around the systemic and social change that is required. It is definitely there across board. It is long term. So right now, as we have the conversation about how we change that long term in order to get where we want to go, we must also have the conversation of the fact that, of what you said, if we look at our statistics, having just under 100 new infections today is significant. And while the systemic changes need to happen and the processes that need to get there need to continue, we must start to say, what is it that we can do? And so, my second point then brings me to the second point, which is about what it is that we are doing and we think we would like support to be able to do. And over the last, we are moving towards World AIDS Day, which is on December 1st. Over the last 3-4 months, we've been having and working through the counties and FKF with a football league that has been bringing together young people with the target of reaching 3 million with education. Why? Only 58% of our young people have correct knowledge of HIV prevention. 58%. So that's an indicator we can change immediately. Like we have to push that to 90% minimum. Testing and counseling. Only 46% of our young boys have been tested and 56% of our young girls have been tested. And why? Because they just will not come for testing. So those are indicators that are about service, that are about immediate, that are about now, that we can begin to move. And from where I sit, I think if the country can help us move in that direction as we move towards World AIDS Day to achieve those targets, we'll have really begun to change two things. One, just the number of young people we are reaching with service and information, even as we start to ask ourselves, what will education do? What will the societal change we need to do, whether structures, whether community, get us? Because that will take a few years to come.
Very briefly, Catherine.
We cannot afford to lose our youth. That is my final comment. We cannot afford to lose them. And I want to say this, Anne, as my concluding remark. We have a duty and a responsibility to give this information to our youth in a manner they understand, in a simple way, and give them correct information. And let us not say we are giving them sex information. We are giving them information to help them. We, the parent, the family, and all the institutions, can we wake up and play our part so that when we all do that, we are able to get our people back. We cannot afford to lose them. If we lose them, we lose the whole generation. And it's something we can avoid.
We lose the country.
So, and we lose the country. That's what I mean by the whole generation. Please, get out there, tell them what you can, give them the correct information, and don't be scared. Don't say, I can't talk about this, it is too secretive, it's not within our culture. It has nothing now to do with the culture.
This is like that.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures. Can we call a spade a spade? And I said, and I'll repeat again, Anne, can it start at home? Can it start at home? It doesn't matter how little it is. When it starts at home, then we can build. We can go building upwards. But if it is lacking at home, It will not work anywhere else.
Wow.
Parents, talk to your children. Church, talk to your children. School, talk to the students and other institutions, and we can be able to get our youth back. Because now where they are, we have to ask God to help us, but we have also to do our part.
Prof.
Let us tell our children that even if you don't have jobs,
Yeah.
even if life is very difficult, you are very, very important people to us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what we should tell them is that you have something to love, to live for, even if you are not going to be very comfortable in life. Looking at me as your parent is enough to make you happy, and so they cannot be struggling to make life better on this earth if they are dead. So tell them that the times could be hard, but you have something to live for. And once you do that, they have hope. Other things will fall in place. But as we do that, on the other hand, we look at the political wing of things. We must reform the state and change the way we do things.
Speaking because I knew, Prof, it's
Yes.
hard to drag you away
Yes,
from,
no,
from
what
politics.
I'm saying
As an absolute final comment.
Yes, that is-
Hold on, as an absolute final comment. So now you can bring in all your politics.
No.
You know, yesterday was His Excellency's birthday. Do you have something to tell him?
You are a great guy. You are very tolerant. Our president, you are a very tolerant person. Continue like that. I hope those who take after you, take power after you, will be as tolerant as you are. Happy birthday, President Kenyatta.
Well, all right, and we're back. After this, I thank you all for your views. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.